If you've ever experienced a glitch in the Matrix or have other true scary stories you want to send my way, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. No, it's also my birthday. This happened to me years ago, and it messed with my mind. None of it made sense. I was working for a company where I did deliveries. We had clients that were mostly in the city that I worked in, with a few that were a few hours' drive from the shop. One drive in particular was a 200-mile drive one way. They were our largest account for a long time, and it more than paid off for the time and fuel used to get up there and back. This was a trip that I did all in one day, so 400-mile round trip. This may seem like a useless detail to put here, but it will provide context for the rest of the story. The first few times running this delivery was pretty daunting. It was a full-day event, 3 to 4 hours up and the same time back depending on traffic, weather, and other circumstances. It got easier after doing it twice a month for a few months. My body acclimated to it, and it became a drive that I enjoyed doing. The company I worked for was tiny, family-owned and run. Excellent people to work for. They treated their employees as if they were extended family. The most enjoyable part of it was not having anyone around you needing you to do things or breathing down your neck. A good 85% of the drive was on an interstate, I-94 to be exact. By the time this experience happened, I had done this drive hundreds of times. I knew the drive and the route very well. I could drive it blindfolded, as the saying goes. One time I was driving this route was a beautiful summer day. Bright blue sky, comfortably warm, and traffic was flowing well. By this point, I had already been on the interstate for an hour or so. Anyone who has driven interstates for any distance knows that there are part of interstates where exits, on and off ramps, become pretty sparse with miles in between them. Around this time, I passed an on-ramp onto the interstate that I was traveling on. At the time, nothing seemed amiss. I looked in my rear view and noticed a car coming up the on-ramp, and merging behind me. Nothing unusual about that. It happens pretty often. Just your usual run-of-the-mill car, probably something like a Toyota Camry, that is a dime a dozen with your average Joe behind the wheel. This is where things become weird. A few minutes later, I look in my rear view again and that car is no longer there. I looked to my left side to see if he was in the passing lane to get around me, but he wasn't there either. Nor was he in front of me like he had made the pass without me noticing it. Some might think, well, maybe he got off at the next exit without you noticing. The thing is, that wasn't possible. This was a stretch of the interstate where entrance ramps and the next exit ramp were miles apart. Not just a few miles, but 15 to 20 miles apart, as to be expected as this part of the interstate went through the middle of nowhere. It didn't pass through or near any cities or towns for there to be exit ramps to get to. And there were no rest stops, or waysides that he could have pulled off into either. This car just up and disappeared. While I was thinking about what had happened and where he could have disappeared, I started to notice that something else was off as well. I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first, just a sense of unease about something that I couldn't articulate to myself. That's when I noticed that the sky had turned a solid, dull gray. Not an overcast gray where there would be clouds or smoke in the air. It was just gray. Like something else had replaced the sky, and the scenery was drab. And that wasn't the only thing. I also noticed that there was no traffic for miles. Not in front of me, not in back, not even on the other side of the interstate. Sure, this would happen from time to time, especially during times when traffic was light, but that would only last a few minutes at a time at most. This felt like it went on for hours. It was quite unnerving as I had no idea what was going on. I'm a person who is usually a very rational, critical thinker, but there didn't seem to be anything rational about this. After what seemed like an eternity, but was likely only a few minutes, I suddenly had what I could only describe as feeling like I had blacked out for a split second. If anyone else has experienced this, you know what I'm talking about. It's like suddenly coming to again, or being thrust back into your reality, where your whole body jumps, or lurches and you shake your head and rid yourself of the feeling. After that momentary lapse in consciousness, everything was back to normal. The sky, the traffic, everything. As if nothing ever happened. I also noticed that I was about an hour closer to my stop. I got off the next exit and pulled into a convenience store parking lot to gather myself and to let my nerves calm. All the while playing the events back in my head, trying to decide what happened. After my mind and body calmed down, I went into the store, used the facilities, and got back into the vehicle, then continued the drive. The rest of the day went normally, and that never happened to me again. If anyone has any idea of what the heck happened, I would be interested in hearing it. This glitch happened to my kids and me in 2008. I call it the time that we transported. My kids, teens/preteens, and I were on the way to the church one Sunday morning. We were Anglican, a rare denomination in our home state of Utah, so we had about a 45-minute drive to get there. In Utah, there is a Mormon church on every corner, but Anglican congregation, there's one. To get there, we had to get on southbound I-15 and connect to eastbound I-80. I-15 runs north and south, parallel to the Wasatch Mountain Range, east of Salt Lake City, while I-80 is an east-west road going up through Parley's Canyon, into Park City. And that's where our church met, Park City, Utah. Anyway, the Wasatch are a familiar daily presence in everyone's life, who lives in the area, and I know them quite well. Parley's Canyon is a notch in a lower point of the mountain range. Other parts of the Wasatch have taller granite peaks that are kind of sharp in appearance, but where I needed to go is more rounded, if that makes sense. The junction of I-15 and I-80, plus one state road, is a jumble of overpasses and underpasses, where the roads cross each other sort of haphazardly, each taking traffic to different off-ramps and exits. As you enter the Spaghetti Bowl, southbound to get onto I-80, you must be in the 3 right lanes of I-15. The furthest 2 lanes must join I-80, and I always get into the furthest right lane possible, because I prefer to stay out of the way of other traffic. When you're in the furthest right lane, it is impossible to remain on I-15. I was in the furthest lane to the right, so it was physically impossible for us to continue on I-15. So we're moving along, visiting, and maybe listening to some music when I notice that the mountains directly east are jagged, sharp peaks, not a notch in the more rounded canyon area. I say, did I just miss my exit? And my oldest daughter, about age 19, says, just keep driving, Mom. But I could see that we were south of the Spaghetti Bowl, and there were no street signs or exits anywhere. I knew that I was on southbound I-15, south of the junction, but I had no idea what exit. Soon enough, an exit for 90th South appeared. Sandy, a city just south of Salt Lake City. We were approximately 5 miles past the Spaghetti Bowl. Of course, we were all talking about what had happened. How did we miss the exit when the car was in the lane that cannot continue southbound? Everyone was kind of excited and a little freaked out, trying to think of what we saw before we were transported. Mainly, we were all going, did that just happen? and why? We pulled off the freeway and immediately back on to northbound I-15, got to the I-80 junction, and we headed east. As we approached the summit, we came upon a motorcycle that had laid out on the road just a moment before. Everything was on the right shoulder, the bike on its side, the rider just getting up with the help of a passerby. I'm convinced that if we had not missed the exit, we would have been in the same place at the same time as that motorcycle. Normally, I would just brush this off as a wandering mind, but I had 3 people with me who all remember the same things. We missed that motorcycle accident because somehow we were 5 miles down the road instead of on I-80. The most notable thing about this experience was that there was nothing beforehand to notify us of something strange going to happen. Everything was perfectly normal. No air of expectation, no ominous dread, nothing to say that this is strange. Just a family in a vehicle, suddenly in a different location on the road. I have always awoken recalling 2 to 3 dreams that were vivid and realistic. My mother never wanted to hear them. She'd make breakfast for me before school and my dad was already gone to work. My sister would then come sit down at our table and she'd tell me what she dreamed, and then I too would tell her mine. Mother would say that she never dreamed. But her mother, my grandmother, with whom I often stayed the night, weekends, always dreamed something before waking from sparse sleep. I listened with interest. So, from a very early age, I was very interested in dreams and read many books about them based on psychology and science, not the dream dictionaries. I learned that the best way to remember your dreams is to immediately write them down while still in bed, and even bought a light-emitting pen and blank book for the dreams. By the time I was out of school, I'd read a slew of books regarding theories of the unconscious mind and meanings of dreams. So, fast forward to me at 21 years old. I had a dream of a man named Frank. He had a common last name, but I will omit that here. I did know it, though. I described his total looks and even that he'd been a boxer in Golden Gloves who boxed in New York, in Madison Square Gardens. I dreamed of many places that we went. We danced at a fabulous place with the coolest music and laughed and had so damned much fun. We talked, and we seemed to have common interests in everything. It was the only time I dreamed where it felt like years passed, and I could recall it all that morning and wrote it all down. 4 or so years later, it all happened. My girlfriend from my high school days was taking a drama class as an elective class for her accounting degree, and we were really tight friends. We wanted to go to a new nightclub downtown. I've never had fear, and I was all in. First, she had to be to her college class drama club play, Arsenic and Old Lace. She said a classmate needed a ride home and she'd agreed to take him both nights, so after that we'd go to find music. I've always loved to dance and also listen to good live music as my dad and sister were musicians, and I was always around super good bands practicing, or whatever. She asked which day I wanted to go, April 4th or 5th. Something in my mind said, choose wisely. It doesn't matter, my friend said, Friday or Saturday. I asked myself which date. April 4th is 4/4, so I chose that. She said okay. Well, it was important. We took her classmate home after the show and we had the strangest familiarity. And yes, he'd boxed in Madison Square Gardens and was from Staten Island. And we went that night and danced our legs off, and yes, his name was Frank, last name. It was the same as the person I dreamt 4 years prior. I then said in the car, I feel that I know you. And then I said, I know when your birthday is. He said that I couldn't, but I said July 7th, 7-7. He was flabbergasted and said, "What did you do? Pick my pocket and see my driver's license?" in his New York accent. I said that I knew because it's also my birthday. I dreamt all of this. Mr. Skeptical demanded to see my driver's license as he showed his own. We became best of friends that day. Oh, and he also always wrote all of his dreams down for years, and had a massive amount of them that I got upon his death. So, good night, Frank. I miss you. This happened a decade ago, but I still can't explain it. I recently shared this experience with my boyfriend after we'd experienced some, maybe paranormal stuff, and figured I would share it to see if anyone knows what this was, because it doesn't seem paranormal, although it is weird. Maybe about 10 years ago, I was working as a manager at a smallish restaurant chain. I'd been with the company for a while, but was fairly new at this location. It was in Sturbridge, Massachusetts, USA, which probably doesn't mean anything to most people. But the two jobs I'd had prior in that town are a little locally famous for being haunted. I've had my share of ghost sightings and weird stuff, but this was different. The building here was 3 floors. Bottom was an antique store and half of the restaurant, then second floor was all restaurant. On the 3rd floor was an abandoned ballroom with all glass walls that likely once overlooked a lake behind the property. But a hotel had been built since and blocked the view. Super creepy space, but nobody ever went up there. Might be irrelevant, but that's the property. We had a pretty bad snowstorm this particular day. I'd been shoveling and salting the walkways and went in to start my shift. I'm walking from the kitchen on the 2nd floor and down a couple of steps to the dining room area, and something hit me. I squeezed my eyes shut, brought my hands up to my face, and fell back a little and yelled out, "Come on, guys!" In the moment, I thought someone had taken a bucket of rock salt and threw it at me. It felt like thousands of little pieces of something had pelted me on my whole body. I was half expecting it to be a prank, but I opened my eyes after a bit, and it was like pulling my shirt to check for salt or something all in my bra, because I felt it literally everywhere. And there was nothing there. Once I realized I was fine and not covered in a pile of salt, or rocks, or whatever, I looked around, and 2 of the waitresses were just staring at me. Like, stopped setting tables wide-eyed. Because their perspective was that I had just stopped, put my hands up to my face to shield it, fell back, yelled out, "Come on, guys," and then started pulling my shirt like I was trying to shake something out of it. They saw me react, but nothing that would have caused the reaction. I'm not sure exactly what that was, or could have been. Subscribing to the channel and hitting that thumbs up button are the best way to wish me a happy birthday. You do want to wish me a happy birthday, don't you? I guess you could call what I'm about to share a glitch, but I'll let you decide. Hi Raven, I love your channel and I've sent in several stories that you have read, and for that I thank you. I have plenty more and I would be happy to share them with you and your listeners if you are interested. For now, I have a short story that I would like to share, so here it goes. This happened back when the pandemic was in full swing and masks were mandatory. It's important to know that the mandate had not been lifted yet. So, my husband and I were out and about one day. We stopped at a gas station to get drinks or whatever, and I noticed that nobody was wearing a mask. We were the only ones. Just the day before, everywhere we went, everyone was wearing a mask, and stores had their signs up stating that masks were required to enter. That day, there were no signs, and nobody was sporting masks. We got back to the car and I made a comment about how weird it was. My husband's response made me feel even more creeped out. He simply said, "Don't worry about it." I kept insisting that it just felt odd. He basically told me to drop it. So I did, and we haven't spoken about it since then. The next day, everything was back to normal, I guess, with everyone wearing masks and signs in the windows of public places. I know this may not seem creepy at all, but I guess you had to be there. It basically went from feeling like the apocalypse one day to feeling like nothing ever happened the next. Then right back to Apocalypse Town. I've heard and read where other folks have had strange experiences during the pandemic, so I thought I would share mine. I hope you enjoyed it. This happened around 2 years ago, but it still puzzles me on a regular basis. I'm someone with a pretty sharp memory. I can always remember random names and dates and can recount entire conversations in my head, even if they happened years ago. I could tell you down to the time of the month when a certain event happened, and what I was wearing and what the weather was like. So when I somehow lost every detail, minus the words, about a very particular and odd conversation I'd had, I was pretty creeped out. Here's what I recall. Other person: did your family send me seeds? I received seeds in the mail with no return address. Me: no, why do you ask? Person: your dad likes to garden, so I was wondering if they were a gift from him. Me: no, it doesn't sound familiar at all. Flash forward to a few months later, I read an article in the news about how receiving seeds in the mail is a scam from random sellers who want to increase their transaction numbers, warning people not to plant the seeds. So, of course, I immediately remembered the conversation and wanted to alert the seed receiver of any potential danger. I have a pretty small social circle, and so does my dad. There are only a few people, friends and family, who know about his gardening hobby. I asked the person who my mind had remembered it as being, and she absolutely had no idea what I was talking about. So I proceeded from the most to least likely, asking again about the seeds. But each one of them looked at me like I was crazy. I know this can be explained by me forgetting, or someone pulling a prank on me, or me confusing a dream with reality, but I can assure you that I know my own self and capabilities, as well as the types of people who would pull pranks on me. This sort of thing has never happened before. I always remember when mysterious events occur because they've always been so fascinating to me, especially since this happened during lockdown, and I could probably count on one hand the number of times I had in-person gatherings. Whenever I recall the memory of the conversation nowadays, I see the scene of a backyard, and someone's face which is completely blacked out, like a void. I'm the only one in my life who remembers anything about the seeds, and I don't think I will ever find out the truth. My friend in Anchorage, back in the day, came from Pennsylvania, and she had many relatives and siblings in that state. Her husband was an oil worker, and that's how they happened to be up here in Alaska. We got to be fast friends, and we were bingo buddies. I was often at their house. So Dottie and I were getting ready to go to bingo when the news report said that a large fireworks factory blew up. According to the news report, it was only a mile away from her sister's house, and she was concerned. Both Dottie and I heard the news, let me add. So Dottie phones up her sister and asks if her world rocked, jokingly. Her sister claimed there was no explosion of the factory and that everything was fine. The very next day, I'm at Dottie's house again, and as we were getting ready to go to bingo, her phone rings. It was her sister. who wanted to know how she could have known how the fireworks factory would blow up, because it did that day, 24 hours later. I heard the report. Dottie heard the report. We both heard the report 24 hours before it even happened. I've had odd things happen before, but this was really strange and unexplainable. In the quiet hum of twilight, I sat behind the wheel of my trusty Chevy Lumina, the dashboard lights casting a warm glow on my hands. The road stretched out before me, an endless ribbon of asphalt leading to destinations unknown. It was just another mundane evening, or so I thought. The radio played a soft melody, and I hummed along, lost in my thoughts. The world outside blurred as I drove, the streetlights flickering like distant stars. But then, reality seemed to glitch. The impact was sudden, a deafening crash that shattered the tranquility. My car spun, metal screeching against metal, and I felt the world tilt on its axis. The drunk driver had come out of nowhere, a speeding bullet aimed directly at my fragile existence. I braced for the inevitable, my heart pounding in my chest. And then darkness. I drifted, weightless, through a void. Pain dissolved into nothingness, and I wondered if this was death, the final curtain call. But then, like a glitch in the cosmic code, I snapped awake. I was still in my car, but something was different. The green lights above me beckoned, and I hesitated. Had it all been a dream? The pain, the collision, it felt too real to be a mere illusion. My trembling hands gripped the steering wheel. Was I alive or trapped in some twisted limbo? I pulled over to the shoulder, my mind racing. The grass crunched under my sneakers as I stumbled out of the car. The night air tasted sweet, and I glanced back at the intersection. It was empty now, devoid of chaos. But then it happened again. A blur of headlights streaked through the red light, tires screeching. This time it wasn't me. It was a drunk driver chased by relentless cops. They collided with a massive Mack truck, metal folding like paper. The world shook, and I watched in horror as life unraveled before my eyes. The drunk driver, gone in an instant. The Mack truck driver bruised but alive. And me, unharmed, untouched by fate's cruel hand. The universe had hiccuped, glitched, and spat me out into this alternate reality. Was it God who spared me, or was it quantum immortality? A leap across parallel worlds? I couldn't be sure. All I knew was that I'd been given a second chance, a cosmic mulligan, and I vowed to make it count. Life is too short for anger, too fleeting for bitterness. I embraced each moment, savoring the taste of existence. The green light became my talisman, a reminder that reality was malleable, that glitches could rewrite destiny. So, when life throws you into the abyss, when the Matrix stutters and stumbles, listen to that inner whisper. Dodge the collisions, leap across timelines, and emerge unscathed. For in the quantum dance of existence, we are both the observer and the observed. And as for me, I drive past that intersection every day, eyes wide open. Who knows what awaits? The next glitch, the next twist of fate? But I'll be ready, grateful for the glitch that rewrote my story. Alright, this happened about a year ago, but I was just watching some parallel world videos and it made me think of this #1 wildest dream I have ever had. I'm sleeping when I get woken up by what sounds like an oxygen tank. At the same time, I feel something in my mouth. I'm thinking, what the hell is that in my mouth? I feel it with my tongue and it feels like a small tube. I reach up for it, and I bump one of those things they put on your mouth and nose for an oxygen treatment. When I bumped it, it came off of my mouth, and then bumped this other device that was over my eyes. Like an Oculus, kind of. And my perspective was then shifted into seeing through the device in my room. And down further, I could see a white room with a guy standing at a counter. When I bumped the device, an alarm went off, and the guy quickly came over and readjusted everything. And I then instantly woke up in my bedroom in an extreme sweat. It was very vivid. The weirdest thing ever. Has anyone had something like this ever happen to them? My thoughts at the time were that it was just a really odd dream, but what do you all think? So that, my friends, was a collection of some interesting Glitch in the Matrix stories. I almost said scary Glitch in the Matrix stories, but I have to remember that by nature, glitch stories are not necessarily scary, they are just strange, bizarre, and odd. And I know some people rehear them, read them, whatever, and think they're kind of creepy, and that's fine, but in my opinion, they are more on the side of bizarre. That's just me. I'm kind of bizarre in the old noggin myself, so at least that's what some people tell me. Some of you guys, in fact. Anyways, hopefully you all enjoyed these stories, these bizarre stories. I know that I did. Always good stuff, always entertaining, always intriguing, and always a fun time. Yeah. If you did enjoy them, consider hitting that thumbs up button as it helps the video do better in the algorithm. You can also subscribe to the channel if you're new and liked what you heard and want to see more of it, because I do glitch stories pretty much every Monday. Some weeks my personal life gets ahead of me, and I run out of time, so I do it on Tuesday instead. Most weeks it's Monday, though. Then on Wednesdays and Saturdays, I do other stuff, and then randomly throughout the week, I'll do even more other stuff. Sometimes paranormal, supernatural, sometimes not. So, yeah. Subscribe and you can see it all as it happens, as long as you hit the bell icon. Hit that bell icon, too. Slap the bell, or whatever kids say nowadays on their Minecraft Let's Play channels. I don't even know anymore. Anyways, subscribe if you like it and want more. You can also join Patreon memberships, get early access to content like this. If you want it, never expected, always appreciated. You can also do a super thanks, which is just a tip or donation to the channel. Again, never appreciated, but oh, I did it! I finally did it! I said it backwards. Never expected, but always appreciated. I told you guys I would do that eventually. I told you that was going to happen. And it would happen today. On my birthday. Anyways. Yeah. So today's my birthday. April 22nd, which means that, as of today, many years ago, I was unfortunately born. Unfortunate for some, fortunate for others. I'll let you decide which camp you fall into that. Yeah, that's all. It's my birthday. And I'm doing work for you guys, because I want to get this video out. Plus, we're going to do stuff tomorrow instead, since I don't have a video tomorrow. And I'm waiting to get paid. Payday is on the 21st, whenever you do this for a living. And 21st was on a Sunday, which means payday is not the 21st. It's the 22nd. And it will happen eventually. As in, before the end of the day, I'll have money. But there's no set time, and there's no way to know when it's going to happen. It's fun stuff. Other than, I guess, I get an email from them saying, hey, your payments come, whatever. It's not relevant. You guys don't care about that stuff. I'm just saying that, like, today I'm broke and working, so tomorrow is celebration day. So yes, as you guys could tell, my birthday's today. Patience's was the 13th. Happy birthday to her. Happy birthday to me. And, yeah, wrapping this up a little bit, or more so speeding it up, we're going to move on to what we call the Word of the Week. Word of the Week is whenever you just leave me a comment with whatever silly little thing I tell you to leave a comment with, and whenever you do so, I take your comments, screenshot them, put them in a Photoshop document that's 1920 by 1080, exported as a PNG so it has transparency, layer it over my little twirly background video that I've had since literally the beginning of my channel, and tell you guys thank you. As you can probably see if you're looking, on the screen right now is a collection of all the comments who used last week's word of the week. I don't even remember what the word was, but they used it. And oh, it was unhinged. Yeah, that's right. And they're all amazing for using the word of the week. So thank you to each and every single one of you on the screen right now that left a comment with the word of the week. If you didn't, that's totally okay. I understand. You're never expected to do so. This week, I am going to be a little more vain, a little more self-centered, and there will not be a word of the week. It will just simply be anyone who, because this is going to happen anyways, so anyone who leaves me a happy birthday comment or just says happy birthday anywhere in their comment, the beginning, end, middle, doesn't matter, on this video before next Sunday will be featured in the word of the week. So I guess technically the word of the week is happy birthday. I'm not going to, like, define happy birthday. Just, my point is I'm going to get happy birthday comments anyways, so I may as well have those be the word of the week. And anyone who does wish me a happy birthday will get featured next week. So thank you to everyone who left a comment. Looking forward to next week's, or this week's word of the week comments. And I hope you all remember that you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until next time, my friends, much love, and of course, sleep well.